Yo.
Cool. Just one of them. Go ahead, man. Hold them on solid, maybe me. That's why I always turn to him. Me, all these choices, I know me. I look back at how far I done came, I can't even come. Somehow I'm so located, looking disdain as I step through the doorway. You walk, you a guy, I just shut up and obey it. Like I come back, I turn around like no way. Some people I left trying to break down my wrong way around it. My engine still running, there's more way than one way. They hate me like Monday, cause people despise what they can't understand. I can't hide who I am, I get high on a Sunday and turn on the sermon. Me mixing the coke and the crown in the back of suburbans. I'm not only worse, cause most of the time all the rentals are paid for by churches. I'm talking too much, they gon' call me some vermin. I looked at the facts and this what I determine. You turn up and turn to a whole nother person. I turn up, I get lit and walk in my purpose. They keep trying to hurt me, but I got discernment. They think being humble, hiding what you're earning. Where I'm from, we hide it, cause we know they lurking. Evil people always hide behind the smirking. Know some dirty people who don't do no cursing, no. So all folks who really think they perfect, but it's really good behind the curtain. You would be surprised if you would see her, and they don't let you God for their wishes. They treat them like Merlin. I know some of my girls with good hands on their shoulders, but going to heaven, cause they remain virgins. I'm calling a culture, they ain't heard of Spurs.
Good ad, isn't it? Yeah.
And money isn't bad either.
I denounce anti-Semitism in all its forms. And I stand with my friends in the Jewish community. And that, Kanye, is how you buy yourself some time.
5, 6, 7. I don't know what the fuck going on.
Oh, burn everything like gasoline. Oh, burn everything like gasoline. Oh, like gasoline. Wife gasoline. That's not my thing. We got those things. Oh, I just can't change. Burn everything. Oh, burn everything. Glory in my eyes, this the story in my life, and you'll be sorry that you got me. You'll be sorry that you lied. You'll be sorry. I pour 40 guys for my brodies in the sky.
Short version. Here we go.
Yeah, see myself in the mirror and I'm confused. Training thoughts in my head, what you tryna do? Funny how I did, I'ma lose. What it happened then, I ain't got no clue. Demons out the cage wearing their weird shoes. I ain't convinced, but I know I ain't got the pride of me. I'ma fuck off your homie. Lose the fuck on your side.
Alright, fuck it. We're still. Get Charlie, man.
Our right government has a mandate, I gotta be careful the way I say this, to try to weekly cleanse gossip. Okay?
How anti-Semitic is my social media? Let's find out.
What is your take on this conspiracy around Israel behind this Charlie Kirk thing?
Right now, we don't have any evidence. It's like hard evidence that ties Israel to anything about the shooting. And so when Charlie gets shot, the first thing through my mind is this is the biggest political assassination since JFK. There has not been a more high-profile political assassination. The chances of that being an intelligence agency than if it was a lone nut, just like on the nature of what has happened. When you start to evidence, it's like, what is the evidence line up with? And if you only listened to the government and didn't think very hard about it, then it would start to lean towards lone nut. It's like, just hated Charlie Kirk. But you don't have to think very hard about all the evidence that's coming out to realize that like things are not adding up. I think a lot of people get that feeling. Text messages going back and forth that are like clearly.
We're looking for motivated people to join the music industry.
Each other. Here we go. Rude. Trust each other. Here we go. Rude.
Damn. Corrupt cop tried to arrest a corrupt guy. So I don't know. All these fucking deals where they put them, oh, they're a lawyer, they're an FBI agent. There's been like 2 or 3 out of the 10 I've seen here lately that they whipped out a badge where I've seen the results and confirmed that they. Come on now. Some of them don't even have the. Oh man.
That's your license back. Put your hands on your back now. Put your hands behind your back. I don't want to phase you, but I will. Please don't. You got it? Hey, look, just a verbal warning. No citation, no court, no call something. That's your license back. I want you to read this. Consent to search form. I'm going to search your car. Read here. If you like, sign here. If you don't have to. You understand what I'm asking, okay? Read this so you understand what I'm asking. Hold on, baby. Hold on. Yeah, just don't get the color back. And what else want to be done? What I told them already. And if you like consent, sign. If you don't have to. It's totally up to you. I'm not trying to trick you. So, we're going to get the price of
Hi, looking for a place to grow in faith and connect with others. I'd love for you to join us.
very pleasing sound.
According to the Jerusalem Post, now there's fear among Israelis there that now the Dutch aren't going to do anything about it. That's bullshit. It's a lie. Clearly, they arrested them and let them go because there were other circumstances. There were other things that were taken into consideration, and that's in France. A resort manager was arrested after denying entry to 150 children at a holiday village. That did happen. There are the Israelis that, it's not a fight, it's not a brawl, there's no antagonizing, but they show up and people look at them and like, you're a bunch of Zionist Israelis and you're clearly pro-Zion. You're proud of what your country's doing. You're not welcome here. And this is going on all around the world, where Israeli IDF and people that are proud of Israel and Zionism, they're being run out of restaurants, they're being run out of water parks, they're being run out of hotels, they're being run out because people are not in support. And when you think, you might think, well, that's wrong, they shouldn't be doing that. Should they or should they not? I mean, when we look back at Nazi time, I have done to the Nazis. If a Nazi showed up at my business, what would I do? Would I serve him or would I not the Nazi? I mean, ask yourself that question. If a restaurant and a Nazi showed up.
I don't think that many people were against the Nazis back then, though. There's like 150,000 Jews. So I'm going to put that.
Would you serve the Nazi? Or would you're not welcome in my business? I think you've all been trained.
Next.
Was Charlie Kirk unalived by his lavalier microphone? Well, I'm about to show you that it does. Everyone knows that wound is an exit. Follow the trajectory. It looks like it's perfect. Look at this one also. Vector analysis of the footage shows that all of the motion starts with this. It is the smoke come out of the device. Now this man pulling his finger right as the bat is off, and then in the commotion he jumps to the table near Charlie Kirk, grabs something out of his sleeve and palms it off to someone else. That person then runs away. Now tell me this, if Israel just to plant explosives in hundreds of pages that went to terrorist organizations, then what stops them from putting a gun inside a major political figure to have use for microphone? Seems pretty plausible to me. Was John alive by his lavalier microphone? Well, I'm about to show the evidence proof.
You just interviewed a terrorist, and she's one of the most vicious of my lifetime. These settlers are lunatic religious fundamentalists that believe in murdering Palestinians for God. It's an absurd interpretation of any religious document. The overwhelming majority of Jews, by the way, do not agree with them. They don't think that you're Palestinians for God. And so when you asked her that last question, it was actually very interesting what her answer was. You said, do you mind 1,000 children being killed? And she said, as they're teaching the children to hate Jews, she seemed to be justifying that we have to kill their children. So think about the absurd logic of that. Since they teach us, we murder their children. Gee, I wonder why they hate you. Like, the fact that she can't even see that shows you how stupid this terrorist is. So I'm done. You guys are way too polite to Israel. Israel state, I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in supporting it. I'm not interested in having them steal more Arab land. And I said to you, peers, a long time that this was never about self-defense. This was about taking Gaza. Well, I was right. I've been proven right by Netanyahu's government. I called them terrorists, and I said that they would kill more civilians than kidding me. They've now, get a load of this fact. Hamas killed 815 civilians on October 7th. Terrible. We've all condemned it 1,000 times. Now Israel killed 870 Palestinians under the age of 1. They have killed young babies that Hamas killed civilians on October 7th. And every time it's a justification. No, we talk God. God told us to steal Arab land. God told us to murder Arab children. What kind of is this? When I saw her smiling like this, smirking, now when I see a lot of these Israeli leaders, I feel like Germans telling us, no, it's okay, we can do this to the Jews. There's going to be no consequences. And their smugness partly, Piers, has to do with the fact that they think we own America. There's nothing you can do. We hold the largest military in the history of the world. We can get them to do whatever we want because AIPAC has bought the entire U.S. government. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. I mean, today Trump is talking about,
correct on one deal here that he said. We always to go back to, oh yeah, they're acting like the mustache man was. The mustache man wanted peace in all of Europe and felt like all of Europe and the world was under attack by these people. Probably won't work. I put it in all caps. But look what I'm doing. See if I can get it to fucking come back up. Oh, let's just go here, see, controversial result for certain things, which it was certain on subject. But still the most solid patients per second. The extermination, which they still exist, so it's not an extermination, of the Jews. I'll make sure you can hear me. Extermination, because they still exist. They're still alive. One particular one is a dogmatic, of course, how they're doing this. And it is incredible. Is it true that you deny the gas chamber resistance? One. To assert the fact. Oh, this is Robert Parks. I see how it is. 81. I assert the fact that these famous alleged homicidal gas chambers, nothing but a tall story of wartime. The invention of wartime propaganda is comparable to the widespread legend of the First World War about Teutonic barbarism. The Germans were then already accused in the First World War, before the mustache man, of completely imaginary crimes, of Belgian children with hands cut off, crucified Canadians, corpses turned into soap. The Germans, I suppose, said similar things about the French. Right? I don't know. German concentration camps did really exist, but the whole world knows they were not original or unique to the Germans. Crematorium ovens also have existed in certain areas of these camps, but incineration is no more offensive or criminal than burial. The crematorium ovens even constitute progress from the sanitary point of view, where there was a risk of epidemics, typhus or typhus, whatever, ravaged the whole wartime of Europe. The whole wartime of Europe, the majority of corpses which are shown to us in photos are that clearly the corpses of typhus victims. These photos illustrate the fact that the internees and sometimes the guards died of typhus. They prove nothing other than this. To exploit the fact that the Germans at times used crematorium ovens is not very honest, and asserting this one counts on the repulsion or feeling of unease and disquiet felt by people accustomed to burial and not to incineration. Imagine the oceanic population accustomed to burying its dead. Tell such people that if you bury your own, you will appear kind of savage. Perhaps they would even suspect that in Europe, persons more or less alive are placed in the earth. One displays one's complete dishonesty when in the same way one presents homicidal gas chambers as the fumigation chambers, autoclaves, whatever, which were in reality used for the disinfecting of garments by gas. According to even Jews, we've heard, claimed or read where they claimed that during that time and later on. Oh, they wash clothes in that to disinfect the lice. Let's continue. There's never clearly formulated accusations have been almost totally abandoned, but in certain museums or in certain books, we're still confronted with a photo of one of these autoclaves sited at Dachu, with the American soldier in front, about to decipher the timetable for gassings. No form of gassing really existed in campus and exposed by gas discriminate. Buildings by gas to exterminate vermin. This purpose by the renowned Cyclone B was used allegedly. Around the other guy said there was no evidence of Cyclone B traces, but let's see. I know a fantastic legend has been built up. Cyclone B, whose license goes back to 1922, still used today, notably in the 80s, for disinfecting of furniture of barracks, silos of ships, but also for the destruction of fox burrows, or of pests of all kinds. It's very dangerous to handle, for as the letter B in the claim of blasure, blue acid, prussic acid, or hydroionic acid. In passing, it's worth noting that the Soviets misunderstanding significance of this letter accused of Germany of having killed the poor thief of Cyclone A, or Cyclone B. But let's turn to the alleged homicidal gas chambers. Until the year 1960, one still believed that the reality of these human abattoirs were using industrial methods. Germans would have killed internees in industrial quantities. Then I learned that the certain authors regarded the realities of those gas chambers as contestable, among them Paul Razumer, I don't know, who had been deported to Buchwald, and then the door of those authors end up by forming a group of historians describing themselves as the revisionists. I studied their arguments, of course. I also studied the arguments of the official historians. The latter believe that the reality of extermination in the gas chambers they are, if one wishes to describe them, the exterminationists. For many years I minutely examined the arguments of one and another. With Auschwitz, two others, Modnik and Strothoff, or however you say it, I have searched in vain for a single person capable of telling me I've been interned in such camp, and I have seen there in my own eyes a building which was undoubtedly what? I guess I don't remember many books documents for many years. War crimes cases. This is part of the SS. I'm not going to. A few minutes conversion before the specialist in question would declare to me, now you must know I'm not a specialist on gas chambers. And even more curious thing, there does not exist as any book or any article from the extermination school on the subject of gas chambers. I know that perhaps certain titles can be quoted to me, but these titles are deceptive. In reality, the formidable mountain of writings devoted to German camps, there exists nothing which concerns their sine qua non, the gas chambers. No exterminationist has written on the gas chambers. And, let's see, the most one can say is that George Wellers of the CDJC attempted to address such subject in an attempt to plead for partial acceptance. Veracity of the Gerstein document about the Belgic gas chambers. On the other hand, the revisionists have written quite a lot about the gas chambers, saying their existence was dubious. To affirm frankly that their existence was impossible. Their existence was impossible. That's what he affirmed frankly. Sorry. My personal opinion is joined to the latter. The existence of the gas chambers is completely impossible. My reasons are primarily those which the revelers have accumulated in their publications. Next, there are proofs which I have discovered myself. I thought it necessary to start at the beginning. You know, in general, it takes a long time to perceive that one actually ought to have begun at the beginning. I realized that all of us would talk of the gas chambers as if we knew the sense of these words. Long though all those who make statements, speeches, or use sentences in which the expression gas chamber appears, how many of those people actually know what they're talking about? It has not taken me very long to realize that many people commit to one of the most glaring errors. These people imagine a gas chamber as being similar to a mere bedroom under the door of which a household gas is released. If people forget that an execution by gas is by definition profoundly different than a simple suicidal or accidental asphyxiation. In the case of execution, one must carefully avoid all risk of illness, poisoning, or death for the executioner and his crew. Such risk to be avoided here. During and after the execution, the technical difficulties applied here are considerable. I was most anxious to know how domestic minks were gassed, how foxes were gassed in foxholes, how How in the U.S. a person who was sentenced to death was executed by gassing? I found that in the vast majority of cases, hydrocyanic acid was used for such purposes. This was precisely the same gas which the Germans used to fumigate their barracks. It was also with this gas that they allegedly killed groups of individuals as well as great masses of people. I have therefore studied this gas. I want to know its use in Germany and France. I've reviewed ministerial documents governing the use of this highly toxic product. I had a good fortune of discovering some documents on Zyklon B and hydrocyanic acid, which had been gathered by the Allies, the German Industrial Archives of Nuremberg. But then, with great scrutiny, I re-examined certain statements and confessions which had been made in German and Allied courts concerning the use of Zyklon B for putting prisoners to death, and I was shocked. And now, you in turn will also be shocked. I will first read to you the statement or confession of Rudolf Haas, then I will tell you the results of my research, purely physical, on hydrochloric acid and Zyklon B. Please bear in mind, Haas was one of the three successful commanding officers at Auschwitz, all three of whom were detained and interrogated by the Allies. Only Haas left the confession, for which we were indebted to his Polish jailers. In this confession, the description of the actual gassing is remarkably short and vague. However, it's essential to realize that all those others who claim to have been present at this sort of operation are also vague and brief, and their statements are full of contradictions on certain points. Rudolf Haas writes, half an hour after having released the gas, the door would have been opened and the fan would have been turned on. The bodies immediately began to remove. Hold on. Hold on. Remember, currently, by the way, Germany has announced they are disgusted with Israel. They have cut off all ties for a majority. There we go. Have an hour. Let's see. In this confession, the description of the actual. Let's see. In this confession, the description of the actual gassing. Hold on. I'm going to get this. Some hashtags here. Get to some other. So I don't have blank. Let's get these hashtags in. If I can get this to. I guess you click not made for kids. Well, it makes me where I have to click something. Hang on. Maybe we'll get back into the Anne Frank thing. But now we've confirmed that Anne Frank. Sir Harry. Oh. Basic moderation shit. Or should I turn that off? Oh well, who cares? Try to spam it anyways. You seen I fucked up there. So in this confession, the description of the actual gassing is remarkably short and vague. However, it's essential to realize that all those others who claim to have been present at this sort of operation are also vague and brief, and their statements are full of contradictions on certain points. Haas writes, half an hour after After release the gas, the door would be opened and the fan turned on. The bodies immediately began to be removed. I call it the word immediately. In German, the word is sofort. Hospital then adds that the crew in charge of handling removing 2,000 bodies from the gas chambers, transporting to the crematory ovens, did so while eating or smoking. Therefore, I understand correctly, these duties were all performed without gas masks. Such a description runs counter to all common sense. It implies that it's possible to enter an area saturated with hydrocyanuric acid without taking any precautionary measure in the barehanded handling of 2,000 cyanided cadavers, which were probably still contaminated with the fatal gas. The hair was supposedly clipped after the operation was undoubtedly impregnated with the gas. Mucous membranes would have been impregnated also. Air pockets between the bodies, which were supposedly heaped one on top of the other, would have been filled with the gas. What kind of super powerful fan is able to instantly disperse? Boy, back then especially, so much of the gas drifting through the air hit in air pockets. Even if such a fan had existed, it would have been necessary to perform a test for the detection of any remaining hydrochloric acid and develop a procedure to inform the crew that the fan had actually fulfilled its function. The room was safe. Now, it's abundantly clear that Haas' description that the fan in question must have been endowed with magical powers in order to be able to disperse all the gas with such flawless performance, so that there was no cause for concern or need for verification of the absence of the gas. What mere common sense suggests is now confirmed by technical documents concerning Zyklon B and its usage. In order to fumigate a barrack, Germans were constrained by numerous precautionary measures, especially trained teams which were licensed only after an internship at a Zyklon B manufacturing plant. Special materials, including especially the J filters, which were used in gas masks, were capable of protecting an individual under most rigorous toxic conditions. Evacuations of all surrounding barracks, warnings posted in several languages bearing a skull and crossbones, meticulous examination of the site to be fumigated in order to locate and see any fissures or openings, the sealing of any chimneys or air shafts, and the removal of keys from doors. The cans of Zyklon B were opened at the site itself. After the gas apparently killed all the vermin, most of the critical operation would begin. This would be the ventilation of the site. Sentries were to be stationed at a certain distance from all doors and windows, their backs to the wind, in order to prevent the approach of all persons. The specially trained crew equipped with gas masks would then enter the building and unclog the chimneys and cracks and open the windows. This operation completed, they had to go outside again, remove their masks, breathe freely for 10 minutes. They had to put their mask on again to re-enter the building before the next step. Once all this work was completed, it was still necessary to wait 20 hours. Actually, because Zyklon B was difficult to ventilate, since it adheres strongly to surfaces. The dispersion of the gas required a long natural ventilation. This was especially important when great volumes of the gas were employed, as the case of the barrack containing more than one floor. When Zyklon B was used in an enclave with a total volume of 10 cubic meters, ventilation forced or artificially was still necessary. After 20 hours had elapsed, the crew would then return with their mask on. They would then verify by means of a paper test. This paper would turn blue in the presence of hydrochloric acid as to whether or not the site was indeed fit for human habitation. And so that we see that a site which had been gassed was not safely accessible. Minimum 21 hours had elapsed. So as far as French legislation is concerned, the minimum is set for at least 24 hours. It becomes therefore apparent that in the absence of a magical fan capable of instantly expelling the gas that is difficult to ventilate, since it adheres strongly to surfaces, the human slaughterhouse, called a gas chamber, would have been inaccessible for nearly a full day. Its walls, floor, ceiling would have retained portions of gas, which was highly poisonous to man. And what about the bodies? These cadavers couldn't have been nothing less than saturated with the gas, just as the cushions, mattresses, blankets discussed in the same technical document on the use of Zyklon B would have been saturated also. These mattresses had to be taken out of doors to be aired and beaten for an hour under dry atmospheric conditions, and for 2 hours when the weather was humid. When this was accomplished, these items were heaped together and beaten again, and the paper test revealed any further presence of the acid. This acid is both inflammable and explosible. How could it then have been used in close proximity to the entrance of crematory ovens? How could one have entered the gas chamber while smoking? I have not yet even touched upon the subject of superabundance of technical and physical impossibilities which come apparent in one actual examination of the site and the dimensions of the supposed gas chambers at Auschwitz and Auschwitz-Birkenau. Moreover, it's just an inquisitive fact finder of the Polish Museum may discover these chambers were in reality nothing more than cold storage rooms, mortuaries, and were typical of such rooms in both layout as well as size. A supposed gas chamber at Krema 2 at Birkenau, of which the remains only a ruin, was in fact a morgue located below ground in order to protect it from heat and measuring 30 meters in length and 7 meters down the center to allow for the movement of wagons. The door, the passageways, the freight lift, which measured only 2.10 meters by 1.35 meters, which led to the crematory chamber, were all Lilliputian dimensions in comparison with the illustration of Haas' account. According to Haas, the gas chamber could easily accommodate 2,000 standing victims, but had a capacity of 3,000. Can you imagine that? 3,000 people crammed into a space of 210 square meters. In other words, make a comparison: 286 people standing in a room measuring 5 meters by 4 meters. Do not be deceived into believing that before the retreat, Germans blew up the gas chambers and crematory ovens concealing traces of their alleged crimes. If one wishes to obliterate all trace of an installation which would be intrinsically quite sophisticated, it must be scrupulously dismantled from top to bottom so that there remains not one shred of incriminating evidence. Destruction by means of the violation would have been agreed into this. If explosives had been employed, the mere removal of concrete blocks would still have left this or that tell sign. As a matter of fact, poles of the present-day Auschwitz Museum have been reconstructed, or have reconstructed the remains, some cremas, meaning in reality, the reconstruction of the crematory and supposed gas chamber. However, all the artifacts shown to tourists attest the existence of crematory ovens rather than anything else. If it was the Germans who dynamited those installations, as an army often does in retreat, it was precisely because those installations concealed nothing suspicious in modern. On the other hand, they left intact installations which were dubbed gas chambers after the war. In the USA, the first execution by gassing took on February 8, 1924, in the prison of Carson City, Nevada. 2 hours after the execution, poison traces were still to be found in the grounds of the prison. Mr. Dickinson, warden of the prison, declared that as far as the condemned man was concerned, the method of execution was certainly the most humane so far used, but he added that he would reject this method in the future because of the aim of the witnesses. Recently, on October 22nd, 1979, Jess B. Bissett was executed by gas at the same prison. The real gas chambers, such as those created in 1924 and developed by the American 3638, offer some kind of idea of the inherent complexity of such method of execution. The Americans, for one thing, only gas one person at a time. Normally, some gas chambers, however, which are equipped with 2 seats for the execution of 2 brothers, for example. The prisoner is totally immobilized. He is poisoned by the cyanic acid with a dropping of sodium cyanide, gelatin, a container of sulfuric acid, and the distilled water, which results in the release of hydrogenic gas, approximately 40 seconds. The prisoner dozes off, and in a few minutes he dies. Apparently, the gas causes no discomfort. As in the case of the Zyklon B, it's a dispersion of the gas which causes problems. It is dispersion of the gas. Natural ventilation for 24 hours is not possible in this case. Obviously, the location of the site of execution preludes such ventilation without seriously endangering the guards as well as the other prison inmates. What, then, is the best course of action with gas which poses such difficult problems of ventilation? Solution: transform the acidic vapors into a solid salt, which can be flushed out with water. For this purpose, ammonia vapors, which are basic, are used to react with the acid vapors to form the salt by chemical reaction. When the hydrocyanuric acid has all but vanished, A warning signal would alert the attending physician and his aides who are located on the opposite side of a glass barrier. The warning signal is phenolphthalein, I don't know, is arranged in containers located at the various places in the chamber and turns from pink to purple in the absence of hydrogen salicylic acid. Once the absence of the poison is indicated, and once an arrangement of fans draws the ammonia fumes out through an exhaust vent, the physician and his assistants enter the gas chamber wearing masks. Rubber gloves are used to protect the hands. One doctor ruffles through the cotton mixed hair so as to brush out any residual hydrocyanic acid. Only after a full hour's elapsed since the death can doctor and his assistants enter the chamber. The convict's body is washed very carefully and the room is hosed down. Ammonia gas has by this time been expelled via a high chimney stack above the prison because of the danger to the guards who are normally stationed in the prison watchtowers. In some of the prisons, the guards are required to leave their posts during such execution. I'll just mention the other requirements for a completely airtight gas chamber, such as the need for locks. Herculite glass barriers of considerable thickness because of the risk of the implosion since a vacuum has to be made. A vacuum system, mercury valves, etc. People boil alive in vacuums too if you got to make a vacuum chamber or something. I don't know if that's the same thing. At room temperature though, they boil, or water boils for 70% water. Gassing is not in provision. If the Germans have decided to gas millions of people and complete overhaul of some very formidable machinery would have been absolutely essential. A general order, instructions, studies, commands, and plans would surely have been necessary also. Such items have never been found. Meetings of experts would have been necessary. Of architects, chemists, doctors, and experts in wide range of technical fields. Disbursements in all cases of funds which have been necessary has occurred in states such as the Third Reich. Welfare would surely have survived. We know, for example, down to the finning the cost of the kennel at Auschwitz and of the bay trees which were ordered for the nursery. Orders for projects would have been issued. Auschwitz and Birkenau would have not been camps. Would not have been camps where so much coming and going would have been allowed. In fact, it was because of all this toing and froing, and in order to prevent any in case of escape. In order to prevent any increase in escapes, that it was found necessary for registration numbers to be tattooed on prisoners' arms. Civilian workers and prisoners would not have to be forbidden to mingle with the inmates. Classes would not have been granted to Germans in the camp, and their family members would have not had visiting rights. Above all, the prisoners who have served their sentence would not have been released and permitted to run to their respective countries. That well-guarded secret among historians was revealed to us several years ago in an article by Louis Dejean, director of the Institute of World War II History of Amsterdam. Moreover, in the United States, the recent publication of aerial photographs of Auschwitz deals a death blow to the extermination fable. Even in the summer of 1944, at the height of the influx of Hungarian Jews, there is no indication of any Hungarian period along the prisoners near the crematorium. An open gate in the landscaped area are clearly visible, and there is no suspicious smoke, although the smokestacks of the crematorium repeatedly spewed forth flames continuously, that they were visible from a distance of several kilometers both day and night. And I'll conclude that we comment on what I regard concerning false evidence regarding the gas chambers. I notice that all the statements, vague and inconsistent as they are, concur at least one point. The crew responsible for removing the bodies of the gas chamber into the site immediately, either immediately or a few moments after the deaths of the victims. I contend that this point alone constitutes the cornerstone of false evidence, because this is a physical impossibility. If you encounter a person who believes in the existence of gas chambers, ask him how, in his opinion, thousands of cadavers were removed to make room for the next batch instantly. June. Question 2, so, and then 6 million? Come on, where's the evidence of that? There have been 6 million in the Soviets, never happened. They said that was going to happen. 6 million and 6 million in Poland, and before the Mustache Man, even still, it's going to be the European Holocaust after the Polish Holocaust. Never happened. And then German Holocaust before the Mustache Man. So when we think of the Mustache Man, blame him solely and not the Jews and German government. How can you assert this? In America, we got a bunch of dual citizenship going on. How can you assert this after all that has been said and written for the past 35 years? After all this files can have been recounted, after the case been brought against one criminal, after Nuremberg, upon one proof, more documents, you base your assertion interesting. Many historical records have lasted more than 35 years. What certain survivors have recounted doesn't indeed constitute evidence, but it's evidence among others. Testimony evidence is not alone is not proof. In particular, the evidence presented at the war crime trial ought to be examined with special caution. Unless I'm mistaken, not a sole witness in 35 years has ever been prosecuted for perjury. A fact which amounts to giving a watertight guarantee to everyone desirous providing evidence of war crimes. Furthermore, this also explains the fact that earlier tribunals have established the existence of gas chambers. But to Germany, where it's now been finally established that they were done. For example, throughout the entire territory of the Old Reich, with judgment pronounced at Nuremberg of only a relative value, the vanquished were judged by their victors. There was not the least possibility of appeal. Article 1921 statutes of this political tribunal cynically gave it the right of not having solid proof. The right of not having to have solid proof. They even validated hearsay evidence. All the other trials for war crimes have been inspired by legislation at Nuremberg. The trials of witches and sorcerers through the centuries used to proceed in such a manner. There have existed, at least at first glance, proofs and witnesses of gassing at Oranienburg or whatever, Blankenmoral, Bergen-Belsen, Dachu, Ravenburg, Malthusson, Prophets, Priests, Catholics, Jews, Communists, have all tested the existence of gas chambers in these camps, and therefore their use of killing internees. To take only one example, Major, or whatever that is, Pigot, Bishop of Claremont Ferrand, has written that the Polish priests have passed through the gas chambers of Dachu. But since 1960, it has officially been recognized that never gassed at Dachu or Daku, D-A-C-H-A-U. I've never really pronounced that correctly. But even more outrageous, there have been many cases where those in charge of certain camps have confessed to the existence and function of homicide gas chamber, where it has since been revealed by investigation that none ever existed. As far as Ravenbrook is concerned, the commander of the camp, Suren, or S-U-H-R-E-N, his deputy, Schwarzherber, and the camp doctor, tried, or whatever, have all admitted to the existence of the gas chamber, and even described in a vague fashion its operation. They were executed, they committed suicide. Get the fuck out of here. Same scenario existed with the commandment of Mathasun, who in 1945 on his deathbed is reported to also have made such confessions. One's not immediately seen that the admissions of these administrators were extorted from them by the Russians or the Poles or the Jews. It was actually judicial apparatus of Britain and France which obtained these confessions. An even more discouraging factor is that these confessions were extracted several years after the war's end. Necessary pressure continued to be applied to such unfortunate right up until the late 50s. 1950, when a man like Schwarzherber collaborated with interrogators or judges or bench magistrates. No serious historian pretends any longer that people were gassed in any camp anywhere in the Old Reich. Today, allegations are only made about certain camps situated. Poland, August 1960, constituted an important date in the history of the myth of gas chambers. On this day, the newspaper Die Zeit posted a letter which entitled "No Gassing at Dachu." Weird. From the content of the letter, a better title would have been "No Gassing Anywhere in the Old Reich, Germany with its 1937 frontiers." The letter from Dr. Martin Bozat, director since 1972 1992, the Institute of Contemporary History of Ministers, Dr. Rott, a convinced anti-Nazi. Convinced anti-Nazi, he belongs to the group of exterminationalist historians. He believes in the authenticity of the Confessions of Rudolf Moss, which he published in 1958, but with serious cuts to the text and passages were exaggerated a little too much, probably obeying the suggestion of his Polish church. I don't know. He admitted on August 19, 1960, the gassing never existed. Dr. Broza admitted on August 19th, 1960, that gassing had never existed in the whole of the old Reich. He had used a confused expression that there had been gassing above all at some chosen points in Poland. For instance, Auschwitz. All the official historians, as far as I know, concluded by agreeing with Dr. Brozak. I deplore the fact that he is condemned himself on a letter sent of papers necessary and detailed explanations were indispensable. It was necessary to explain to us why the proof, the evidence, the confessions were all so would you, a survivor, a doctor. So here we go, another, let's go down, I read this one. Mainly by the French, British, and American tribunals to suddenly lose all its value in the way the evidence collected by the Polish Soviet tribunals should preserve it on the same subject. So in 68, it was turned gas chamber demolished on Austria to declare mythical by an exterminationist historian, Olga Warmser-Migan. In her thesis on the Nazi concentration camp system, in particular section titled "The Power of the Gas Chambers," let's retain this heading. For according to the administrators or admissions of the extermination historians themselves, there does exist a problem with the gas chamber. In regard to the false confessions, I one day asked the historian Joseph, or exterminationist historian Joseph Billig, attached to the CDJC, how he could, for his part, explain them. Here's his reply. They were, so he said, psychotic phenomena. For our part, I have an explanation to offer about these alleged psychotic phenomena, as well as the part about schizoid apathy. On David's petition for the Nuremberg trial, Haas had been tortured by British jailers. He had been interrogated with a riding whip and primed with alcohol. Likewise, at the Dachau trial, the Americans, as revealed in particular by the Van Roden Commission, had inquired, "Dang, that's crazy, but torture more often than not is useless." What else? Let's skip around. When the guy said, so the myth of gas continued the Second World War is merely the product of recycling of the myth of the gassing of the Serbs during the First World War. It goes back to further than the fucking, there's that. I don't know, folks. And they stole that from the Black Sun, so let's see. This I want to know. We're going to have to stop early, but this I want to know. Uncensored. This is one of these uncensored ones. Why specifically the black sun? This is used in. It's the question I've never heard nobody answer. The clearly symbol, tons of natives, the Mayans, the Aztec, the Hindu. It's the only question I have. Oh, God, it's going slow. Shit. It's one question. The ether? Connecting oneness? Anything like that? Fuck it, we're going all the way in. So how are they racist exactly? Hang on. How are they racist exactly? I've seen Wall Street Jew. I recently seen a Wall Street Jew claim they started Sodom and Gomorrah in Germany. But that many Jews join a regime exterminating safe to say it could have CBS News a few years back. You see where I'm going with this? Put clip with I don't Come on, let's go viral, y'all. Hit the likes. Listen, fuck. Well, you're not talk about it either. I mean, you deflected on the clear. Damn. Deflected on the CBS News headlines. You see that? Let me try another route. Talmud. Shows I don't know. Shit's hooked. I can talk about it. Of course not. And I can. Smooth selling dildos with his daughter. That's I cannot see you as good and to escape to escape Cool. Could it be? Of course not. But when fine, okay. Living harmony in Palestine and let's try it like that. You can read that, guys. Thank you. Cool. Please. Tiny strip. If these I can't remember. Remember what the claim number was. Soviet Union. Don't who cares? Before if there had been all across Europe and Russia at the time, not just it would have previous 107 previous Literally cutting corners. And why they now they have ridges. Oh no. Thank you. Woohoo! Ah! 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 Can you elaborate and provide sources? To me, I think with oh no, nah, that's crazy talk. Damn, that limited amount of whatever. But you seen where at first like anti-Semitism, he was a racist, then it was like, oh, they get kicked out or wherever they go, always causing trouble. They're not innocent victims. Okay, but how come in Germany is the one spot that they are innocent victims? Even though, like I said, 109 countries, and it's always the same type of accusations. That's crazy. Child sacrifice. Well, of course, you know, the people that run this probably regulate it too. Yeah. Well, we're going to call it. Yeah, I might leave some of this up and come back to it. I gotta get this court stuff finished. But damn, bro. Right to travel, we're doing it. No one else really doing it. That's crazy. Come on, bro. You can't tell me that out of 109 countries, well, we weren't doing it and it was just a lie because we were doing it in 108 other countries. But in Germany, I promise you, we weren't doing all this stuff at all. We were good little boys. Good little fucking bastards. Anyway, clip what you want from clip what you want of these videos. Some are short, some are 3 hours. I just come on whenever I try to come around 4 in the afternoon to around 10 o'clock. We just go down long. I kind of want to do afternoon drives, but late nights would be probably preferred. Might just do an afternoon thing for all the politics and for the deep conspiracies. We might go for the midnight hour or stuff like maybe like this. I don't know. We're really afternoon drives questioning it now. All I'm saying is 107 countries, folks. So let's switch to fake gas vans and the show by bullets. Oh shit, brother. That's how long we've been going here, if we can. Let's just do a few more of these. Wow. Your mola. Now they're playing the way, you know, it's these shoes. Next. Yes. I'm calling